Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you work, the dream of owning something truly yours is slipping further away? You save your money, you look at the markets, and you see prices climbing higher and higher, far out of reach for the average person. You save your money, you look at the markets, and you see prices climbing higher and higher, far out of reach for the average person. You save your money, you look at the markets, and you see prices climbing higher and higher, far out of reach for the average person. But have you ever stopped to ask why? Why is it that in an era of unprecedented technological progress, the basic pillars of a stable life, a home, a car, even the food on your table, are becoming temporary subscriptions rather than permanent possessions? Today, I will present to you 3 key pillars of what I call the BlackRock Masterplan. By the end of this video, you will understand how we transitioned from a society of owners to a society of permanent tenants. And more importantly, why this was not an accident, but a calculated architectural shift in the global economy. Do you understand what is happening to your wallet right now? Because if you don't, you are already living in their world without even knowing it. To understand the future, we must look at the entity that is quietly buying it. When we talk about power, we usually think of presidents, prime ministers, or even tech moguls like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. But there is a shadow that looms larger than all of them. It is called BlackRock. If you have never heard of them, then you are missing the biggest story of the 21st century. BlackRock manages over $10 trillion in assets. Let that number sink in for a moment. 10 trillion. If BlackRock were a country, it would have the 3rd largest economy in the world, sitting right behind the United States and China. Do you see the scale we are dealing with? This isn't just a big bank. This is the central nervous system of global capitalism. Why does this matter to you sitting at home, perhaps paying your monthly rent? It matters because BlackRock and its peers, like Vanguard and State Street, have become the ultimate landlords of the planet. Imagine you go to a grocery store. You see hundreds of different brands, different colors, different promises of health or taste. You think you have a choice, right or wrong, whether you buy soda, detergent, or chips. The chances are that the majority shareholder of the company that made those products is BlackRock. They own the competition. They own the supply chain, they own the very ground the store is built on. Guess what happens when one entity owns both the seller and the buyer? The concept of a free market begins to vanish. Why would they compete with themselves? They wouldn't. They simply manage the flow of wealth from your pocket into their ledger. Now let's talk about the most intimate part, your home. For generations, home ownership was the primary way for a family to build wealth. It was the equity that allowed for college or retirement. But have you noticed what has happened? You find a place you love, and before you can even make an offer, a mysterious entity swoops in with all cash, 20% above the asking price. You can't compete with that, can you? Of course not. These entities are institutional investors. BlackRock is at the forefront of this trend. They aren't buying these houses to live in them. They are turning them into permanent rental units. Think about the sociological impact. If you own your home, you are a citizen. But if you rent your life, you are merely a user. A subscriber. Do you understand the difference? A homeowner builds wealth over time. A renter simply pays for the privilege of existing. By moving toward a rentership society, these firms are effectively cutting off the ladder to the middle class. This is corporate feudalism. You work your life to pay for services and housing provided by the same companies that employ you. It is a closed loop, and the house always wins. But how did they get this powerful? To explain this, I want to use a simple analogy. Imagine you are playing a game of Monopoly. Eventually, one player owns the utilities, the railroads, and every set. At that point, it doesn't matter how well you roll the dice. You owe them money. BlackRock has reached the end game of Monopoly in the real world. They used massive capital from pension funds to buy stakes in every major corporation. This brings us to a very important question. Whose money is it anyway? This is the most ironic part. It's your money, your 401k, your savings. BlackRock takes the capital of the masses and uses it to exert control over the world the masses live in. They use your own wealth to build the cage. Why is this important? Because it changes the nature of corporate governance. They don't care if one company fails, they care about the system's stability. Why is this important? Because it changes the nature of corporate governance. They don't care if one company fails, they care about the system's stability. They want predictability. And predictability is the enemy of innovation and the friend of control. Have you heard of ESG? Environmental, social, and governance. On the surface, it sounds wonderful. Who wouldn't want companies to be more responsible? But look closer. Under the guise of ESG, BlackRock has the power to dictate behavior. If a company doesn't follow their goals, they are starved of capital. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about social control. They are acting as a global private government that no one ever voted for. Let's look at a historical experiment. Early economists warned about the managerial revolution. We have reached the ultimate expression of this. BlackRock managers don't own the trillions, yet they have the voting power. This gives them leverage that even powerful kings in history would envy. They can walk into any boardroom and demand changes, and those companies have no choice but to listen. Why should you care about this today? Because this master plan is accelerating. We are moving into the era of the access economy. Ownership is being phased out in favor of access. Even car companies are experimenting with subscription models for features like heated seats. Do you see the pattern? Who provides that access? The corporations owned by giant firms. If you own nothing, you are dependent. If they decide to cut off your access, you are left with nothing. This isn't just about economics, it's about human freedom. Ownership provides a buffer between you and the state. Without it, you are floating. You are a guest in your own life. A society of guests stops caring about the long term. They become focused on the immediate and the disposable. They need you to be a perpetual consumer who can never save enough to become a competitor. But there is an even deeper layer: data and algorithms. BlackRock has a secret weapon, Aladdin, Asset, Liability, Debt, and Derivative Investment Network. It is a massive AI system monitoring global markets. It calculates risk for trillions of dollars. Many governments use Aladdin to manage their own risks. The entity that owns companies also owns the brain. This creates a feedback loop of unimaginable power. Aladdin sees the moves before they happen. It is the ultimate invisible hand, the algorithm. And when the algorithm decides the most efficient way is for you to be a permanent renter, the entire financial system starts to pivot toward that goal. When the most powerful computer in the world is programmed to maximize returns for institutional masters, it's not your imagination. It's math. What is the final goal? Why would they want a world where you rent your life? To answer that, we look at stakeholder capitalism. This is a term frequently used by the World Economic Forum. It sounds inclusive, but it means giant firms decide who the stakeholders are. It is a way to bypass the will of the people and the laws of nations. It is a way to centralize human management under a corporate umbrella. Imagine your social credit score, carbon footprint, and rental history all tied together in a single digital ID managed by the same systems as BlackRock. If you are a good stakeholder, your rent stays stable. If not, your access is restricted. This sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? But all the pieces are already on the board. The technology exists. The capital is concentrated. The philosophical framework has been written. The total integration is happening right now, under the guise of efficiency and sustainability. Do you understand why they want your carbon footprint? It's the ultimate metric for controlling your consumption. If everything is measured and taxed, then your freedom is no longer a right. It's an allowance. And the allowance can be revoked at any time. This is where the economic master plan meets the sociological reality. We are witnessing a management system where your role is not to be a citizen, but to be a unit of data within an optimized portfolio. As Aladdin is integrated into banking, who is in charge? Is it the people we elect, or is it the algorithm that manages their money? The answer will determine the fate of the next century. The algorithm is winning. When we say the algorithm is winning, we are talking about the fundamental rewiring of how power is exercised in the modern world. Why, regardless of which political party is in power, does the underlying economic direction stay the same? Why do the rich keep getting richer? The answer lies in the revolving door between the largest investment firms and the highest levels of government. It is a seamless integration. Former executives become treasury secretaries and economic advisors. The people who make the rules are the same people who benefit from them. Imagine a game of soccer where the referee, the coach of the opposing team, and the person who owns the stadium are the same individual. Fair? You are just a guest participant in a match already decided. This is the institutional capture of the state. The line between public and private profit vanishes. The master plan is an open architectural design where the state becomes a subsidiary of the investment fund. Why is this important for you? Because it means that the safety nets you rely on, Social Security, healthcare, are increasingly being managed by the logic of a balance sheet. Now let's talk about the final piece, central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. You might think, I already use digital money, but the difference is everything. Currently, your money in a bank is a private claim, but a CBDC is direct programmable money. It is money with a brain. Guess who builds the infrastructure? The same giant firms that manage world data. If the master plan is to turn you into a permanent tenant, the CBDC is the digital lease you can never break. Do you understand the power? The issuer can decide where and when you spend your money. If the algorithm says you ate too much red meat, your dollars won't work. If you participate in a protest, the system deems unstable. Your access can be frozen with a single click. There is no cash to fall back on. If you participate in a protest the system deems unstable, your access can be frozen with a single click. There is no cash to fall back on. You are entirely dependent on digital permission. This is the ultimate subscription model. You are subscribing to your right to participate in society. The price is your total compliance. Why would they want this? A population that owns property and has independent savings is hard to control. But a population that rents everything is managed with surgical precision. It is the great reset of the human condition, from being to using. Think of a library. You buy a book, you own it. Now think of an e-reader. You buy a license. If they decide to remove or change it, it vanishes. This is exactly what they are doing to the entire economy, removing the hard copies of wealth, houses, cash, replacing them with digital licenses they control. Have you noticed how difficult it has become for a small business to survive? This is not a mistake. Small businesses represent independence. They don't beg for paychecks. By squeezing the small player, the system forces everyone into the corporate umbrella. You either work for the giant or you are served by it. No middle ground. And guess who owns all the giants? BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. It is a consolidation of power that would make the emperors of Rome blush. But why is there no escape? Because the system is too big to fail. If you try to opt out, the alternatives have been bought up or regulated out. The master plan is to create a global closed loop. It is a digital panopticon where the walls are made of debt and the guards are made of algorithms. Do you remember the phrase, "You will own nothing and be happy"? It is becoming a reality faster than anyone expected. The happiness is just convenience. It's convenient to have everything delivered, but that comes at the cost of your sovereignty. You are trading your freedom for a frictionless life. It's convenient to have everything delivered, but that comes at the cost of your sovereignty. You are trading your freedom for a frictionless life. When you spend 50% on rent, 20% on subscriptions, and the rest on basic consumption, you have zero left to invest. You're on a treadmill. A society that stops owning things loses its sense of history and stewardship. Ownership is an act of responsibility for the next generation. A society that stops owning things loses its sense of history and stewardship. Ownership is an act of responsibility for the next generation. A society that stops owning things loses its sense of history and stewardship. Ownership is an act of responsibility for the next generation. The master plan creates a permanent present where everyone is focused on the next payment. It is a society of nomads who never move. How does this affect you? It affects your stress levels and security. You live in constant low-level anxiety. This makes you easier to manipulate. But I want you to think about this. Is there a way out? If the master plan is so total, what can an individual do? The first step is understanding. You cannot escape a cage if you don't even know you are in one. Recognizing the patterns puts you ahead of 90% of the population. Knowledge is the only asset. The second step is to prioritize hard assets and independence. Owning a skill, a piece of land, a physical book, or physical cash. These are acts of resistance. These are analog islands in a digital ocean. Why is this important? Because the system relies on your total participation and the idea of no alternative. The moment people start to create their own networks and ownership, the closed loop begins to crack. The master plan is powerful, but it is also brittle. It relies on historically unprecedented complexity. The bigger the system, the more catastrophic the failure when the algorithm makes a mistake. Do you understand the stakes? We are talking about the soul of our civilization, free individuals owning lives or a managed population of permanent tenants. The choice is being made right now. But the final vote is yours. It is in how you spend your money and how you choose to perceive the world. The BlackRock Masterplan is a vision of a controlled world, but a life that is rented is a life that is borrowed. And what is borrowed must eventually be returned. The question is, to whom will you return it? To the algorithm that managed you, or to the next generation of free humans who refuse to be owned? Don't be a user. Don't be a subscriber. Be an owner. Even if it starts with owning your own mind, say no to the lease. Thank you for watching this deep dive. Share it with someone who is still wondering why they can't seem to get ahead. I am Professor Jiang. Do you understand now? The escape isn't through the system. It's by realizing that you were never meant to own it in the first place, unless you fight for it. Stay curious, stay independent, and never stop questioning the lease agreement of your life. To recap, the first pillar is the sheer scale of BlackRock's influence. When a single firm manages $10 trillion, they are no longer just an investor. They are the architect of the market itself. This concentration of wealth is the foundation of the master plan. The second pillar is the takeover of your most intimate asset, your home. By outbidding families with all-cash offers, they are turning a society of owners into a society of permanent tenants, effectively cutting off the primary ladder to the middle class. And the third pillar is the invisible control of the algorithm. Through Aladdin and the push for CBDCs, the master plan seeks to turn your economic participation into a revocable license, a world of using rather than being. But remember, the loop only closes if you let it. Stay vigilant, protect your independence, and never stop questioning the systems that seek to manage your life. The future belongs to those who refuse to be owned.